Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome to our spoiler-free review for The Creator. We can't go to heaven, because you're not good, and I'm not a person. My name is Nate, and if you're joining us for the first time, we are Geekcentric, a podcast focusing on the world of movies, TV shows, games, toys, and collectibles, and all things Geekcentric. Now, joining me for today's review, we have my favorite simulant. His intelligence is certainly not artificial. He's Justin, the JPEG lover, Lawrence.
I am a JPEG lover. Shoot everything in JPEG.
You love those JPEGs.
Damn right. Better than those RAW files, let me tell you.
Gee, how you doing, man?
Doing well. Lot to share about
stuff.
this one.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you about this one and see where you're at. I think we saw it a couple days from when we're recording this, so it'll be interesting to see. Before we keep going, though, I think this movie is pretty timely. For those who don't know, it deals with like AI and robots. Justin, I wanted to know for you, when the robots do take over, this is on the record, right? They have access to this. Are you going to be their friends?
Yeah, I think so. As long as they're obviously, playing
if they're
nice.
Cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're cool. Surprisingly, and I know we'll probably get into it, but AI didn't have as much of a negative aspect to it in this film as much as I thought it would have.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I think humans are definitely the problem. But that said,
we always are, dude.
For sure. And I think that as long as they're not out to kill us, sure. I would definitely I would welcome some AI assistance and AI friendship, if you will.
So for the record, we're against AI taking over people's jobs. But
Correct.
If the robots do take over the world, then we've lost. So yeah, just be cool, robots.
Yeah, exactly. Be cool, man. Be cool.
Yes. But kind of getting into that a little bit further there, I do want to pause to remind everyone listening that we here at Geekcentric do support the WGA and SAG-AFTRA as they strike to get the contract they deserve. Without incredible writers and actors, we wouldn't get all the wonderful stories like the one featured in this film, and so many others that we love so much. So if you want to support the actors and writers of the things we love, you can do so by checking out the links in our description. From writer-director Gareth Edwards comes an epic sci-fi action thriller set amidst a future war between the human race and the forces of artificial intelligence. Joshua, a hardened ex-Special Forces agent grieving the disappearance of his wife, is recruited to hunt down and kill the Creator, the elusive architect of advanced AI who has developed a mysterious weapon with the power to end the war and mankind itself. Joshua and his team of elite operatives journey across enemy lines into the dark heart of AI-occupied territory, only to discover the world-ending weapon he's been instructed to destroy is an AI in the form of a young child. The film stars John David Washington, Gemma Chan, Ken Watanabe, Sturgill Simpson, Amar Chadha Patel, Allison Janney, and Madeline Yuna Voiles. The Creator premieres exclusively in theaters September 28th. Special thanks, as always, to our friends at 20th Century Studios and Disney Studios Canada for letting us watch this movie early for review. So, Justin, let's get into our thoughts. We're going to kind of talk about what we liked, what we didn't. And right off the bat, I'm going to start just by giving some mad praise to my guy, Gareth Edwards, who directed this movie, wrote this movie. He wrote it in 2018. And for him to, take so many ideas from other sci-fi movies like Blade Runner or Apocalypse Now, while also still giving what I felt was such an original world with original characters. I just thought, I thought the story, it had me gripped, and it quickly sets everything up. It really moves at the beginning of the movie, which I really appreciated, and gets you up to speed on the advancement and then the degradation of human AI relationship.
Yeah, it's interesting because we're very much at the point right now in the real world. We're at the beginning of AI, whereas this movie kicks off after the beginning of AI. AI has been around for a while. They've embraced AI. They've used it to benefit their lives. And now they're at this sort of purest state where they want to eliminate AI and disconnect from their reliance on it. So it's a very interesting perspective. It is definitely the future, if you will, in more ways than one. But you're absolutely right. I think Gareth Edwards, embraces so much of the films that have come before it in this movie. Like you said, Apocalypse Now, which is renownedly known as one of the all-time great war films, not because of just its depiction of war, but its depiction of the psychological toll that it has. And we see that sort of unfold in a multitude of ways with this sort of juxtapositional dilemma, to live, to die, to embrace, to destroy. And I think in a lot of ways we see different characters bound to these, psychological thought processes. And it all feels very fitting given its topic. But absolutely, like, Blade Runner is definitely an influence. I know, I'm not sure if this was purposeful or not, but I see a little District 9 as well. I see a little Elysium,
a bit of Chappie at times,
a little bit of Chappie as well. And that's definitely represented in more of the production design and the world building elements. And I think for myself, that was the first thing that really drew me to wanting to check out this movie, is the world that it visually depicts. Its attention to detail, the production design. It's so immersive. It's a future that feels familiar yet alien at the same time. And I think Gareth Edwards and the entire filmmaking team really left no stone unturned in crafting an environment that is visually stunning and thematically rich. It has its own history. It has its own culture. We talked about it after. Just to see AI and humans sharing in prayer, to share in belief, to share in empathy and love. It really does capture a world that I want to know more about.
Absolutely. And to your point of, like, just how detailed everything is, it's the cool thing with this is because we get to see such a again, without spoiling anything, but we do get to see a large amount of time in terms of sort of the scope between the beginning of AI to where we end up in this movie. And it's cool because the world itself is steeped within its own history. And so, for example, at one point we see Alfie, played by Madeline Univoyles, and she's watching what looks like a G.I. Joe cartoon from the 80s, but if you look closely, it's actually depicting the ongoing war between humans and artificial intelligence. It's propaganda, but it's just done in that, like, 80s style, because this cartoon would have come out, probably around that time. And it's just, I thought that was so smart. And I loved how, I think they, not just aesthetically, but just also in the sense that I never felt like I was taken out of the film, either when seeing a simulant or a full-on robot, like, speaking, right? Like, there's robots that are speaking in different languages. They have different accents. And I think it's tough to design something without a mouth, but instead just like a slab of metal moving up and down from its face, and not have it seem goofy. Right, it seemed like it just fit within this world. I was so wrapped up in the way these characters looked, and if anything, it just got me more invested in their story.
Sure, yeah, it was definitely, it definitely felt enriched with history that we hadn't necessarily been privy to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we were sort of, kind of caught up to speed in the intro, which was done in a really smart way. It was done in a way that felt, as we reference, very propaganda style, sort of old school war pieces that I thought was extremely thoughtful to do it in that manner. But continuing with the conversation about the visual effects, like, in many cases, it's just jaw-dropping, the visual effects that they were able to achieve in this movie.
Where were they? Point them out.
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
what I mean? Like,
it's so crazy. And this movie is apparently cost $80 million to make, whereas Expendables 4 cost $100 million to make.
Check out our review for Expendables 4.
It looked like trash. Yeah, please do, because we get into it. But the visual effects, I gotta say, like, this transports you to a future beyond your imagination. Like, each frame just is filled with this eye-popping visuals that push the boundaries of what you can achieve in cinema with creativity just on display in its design, from futuristic landscapes to advanced technology like the AI robots you were talking about. And it's a future that is both beautiful and haunting.
Horrifying.
It's terrifying, and it's nothing short of astounding what this movie achieves on that level of visual effects. So, all power to the commitment of, again, from the world building aspect and from the visual effects aspect, really leaning into that sci-fi component to make this feel like a world lived in.
Well, huge shout outs as well, again, to, the casting director and to Gareth for, they used 80 different locations around the world with very little green screen work. And then I was reading that a lot of the background actors were discovered in the locations that they were shooting. Like, apparently there's a scene, where we see a bunch of scientists running around. Those are actual nuclear physicists that they had in that scene from where they shot. And I just think that's so damn cool, just the locations and the way they were able to do that. And then just aesthetically, in terms of like, we were talking about like just the coolness of the design. I also want to shout out the choice to use like the text blocks, the sort of the inner titles, if you will, that they use to set up each chapter of the movie. The movie's sort of broken down into these different chapters, and they reminded me of what they used to do. It didn't remind me because I didn't grow up during that time, but from what I've seen from like silent films of that era, how they would sort of have the text come up on the screen to sort of explain or set up those stories. And then I love that there's, again, going back to just the overall design, it's just really creepy because the name of the AI god, I won't reveal it, but the name of the AI god is in the bottom left-hand corner of every single one of these inner titles, almost as if this is a retelling narrated by the AI itself. And I just thought, like, again, adding all these extra levels is just...
It's branded.
It's so cool.
Yeah, no, the title cards are branded in a way that makes it feel like it is them telling us this story.
It's scary.
Which is interesting. But yeah, the title cards themselves, yeah, they felt like something from the silent era of film. I would even say something even more so even from like samurai films of the time. And the
or
idea,
like Godzilla, like the...
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, and the idea they used English text as well as I'm imagining it would be either, I'm not going to go in on a basis of guessing what it is, but some form of East Asian, whether it be Chinese, Japanese, or Korean, or even Thai. I'm not sure. But but the whole idea of New Asia.
Yes.
We were talking with another
sort of blended.
We were talking with another friend of the show after we got out of the screening, and he also noticed how they brought together New Asia as sort of this one entity that stood in opposition to the West, which was America and its interests, and how they were seen as the threat, and that sort of geopolitical landscape again feels very much the haunting future piece of how AI might become something that is sort of used as a tool to draw lines between beliefs and cultures, very much like religion in a lot of ways. And I think that's exactly, and I think that's what's really interesting about using this mentality of AI as sort of another belief. So all power to them again, adding that in as part of this world element and the storytelling. I want to talk about the cinematography.
Yes, please.
It plays an integral role in amplifying this film's scope. The camera work is combined expertly with choreographed action scenes, and it keeps you visually invested. I'm telling you, like, I was in awe the entire time we watched this. And whether it's high octane chase scenes through sprawling futuristic metropolis cities or just these intimate character moments, the cinematography really does elevate every scene, making it a true visual feast. And on that note, I just want to point out, as a guy who likes cameras and does a lot of camera work, they actually used, and I don't know if it's their primary camera throughout every single shot, but featured heavily in this feature that I saw, they used a Sony FX3, which is a prosumer level camera that in all honesty, I was looking at purchasing a while back.
Is it better than the iPhone 15 camera?
It is definitely better than the iPhone 15 camera, but I'm just going on the basis of this isn't an Ari Alexi,
right? No, absolutely.
This isn't a Red.
Good. Yeah.
This isn't a top tier cinema camera, because what it really highlights is that it doesn't matter about what camera you're using. What matters is the production design, the landscape, where you're shooting. All of those elements will add so much more than just the camera. So all power to the cinematography team behind this. I think this really does help to elevate and the entire story, but also just highlight the importance of everything else that goes into the picture before the camera. And I love that.
Huge. And I think, a big, huge shout out to Greg Fraser, who did Dune, right? And then
he did Dune, and he did the Batman, and he won the Oscar for Dune.
So he had to leave about halfway through, from what we heard from some colleagues, that he left to go do Dune 2, and then Oren Soffer came in to kind of round out the movie. So absolutely fantastic.
But like, again, even with the work that he did in the Batman, it was about taking, these high pristine cameras and putting shitty, dirty lenses on it to give it a certain grunge look.
Right.
And here you have the simplest, smallest form camera. It's literally just a rectangle.
Yeah.
And it's on gimbals, it's on rigs, it's on things that you would imagine larger cinema cameras on. It's this small camera.
Right. The rigs that it's on cost more than the camera itself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow.
And the fact that they invested in using that sort of those cameras throughout this movie. I'm like floored by it, because you would expect, especially given the scale and scope of this movie, that they're using top tier cameras that are cinema grade. Like, the cinematography was top notch.
Well, I want to get to performances, but just before I do, I also want to shout out Hank Corwin, Scott Morris, and Joe Walker for the editing in this movie. I loved the way that we get flashes of Joshua's life to fill in the context at the right time. I think anytime a movie can show me instead of tell me about the crucial background details on a character, I end up caring so much more about that character. And I think this was done in a way that at times hit really emotionally, right? Like with certain flashbacks only lasting even seconds at a time, like the end of a bad dream. I think the fact that memories also play such an important part of Joshua's story and this story in general, I think it also lends to the way that they use those scenes really, really well. And I know a lot of that is like sort of creative decisions, but it really did come down to like, how much do we show? When do we show it? And so I just wanted to shout out the editing on that as well.
Yeah, I think this is a technique that he's definitely used in something like Godzilla, where you did kind of get
little
fragmented
flickers. Yep.
Yeah, you get like little fragmented elements sprinkled throughout in a way that helps to, as you described, feed into the larger narrative, and how it's sprinkled throughout. That helps to give context, even if we don't know exactly when it happened. Do you know what I mean? Yep. Like, there's one specific moment where you just see clips of like in a subway station, and you see a simulant numerous times. And I was just like that was just sprinkled in there to almost highlight what has become, right?
Yeah.
And what they're, and you don't know if it's actually real or if it's just something that they're imagining. It plays with your own sort of, understanding of what's going on.
Well, speaking of understanding what's going on, I think John David Washington did a really great job of emphasizing a character who's like, what's going on? I think he was great in this movie, and I think his chemistry or sort of lack thereof until it's there chemistry with Madeline was fantastic. And I love how he calls her Lil Sim. They're called simulants, right? They're not quite full robots. They're right, and so I love that he calls her Lil Sim, and I think it's like her rap name. Yeah, like they're really, but both of them are the heart of this film, and I was so delighted with how John David Washington gave such an emotional and engaging performance, and he really is sort of, he carries the film. Obviously, he's the protagonist. He has to, but he does it. He does a great job.
He does. He definitely does, especially in the first two acts of this movie. And I really did adore Alfie. I think, again, we've always called it out. We called it out. I'm a dad now. I can't help but think of my own child, and to see their bond, to see how they sort of grew together, and to also see how, as an AI, she learned from him. This whole idea behind AI and how it intelligently learns based on your habits. It was really crazy to see how when things started to click in, it had something to do with her learning from him.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting. And it's not really addressed, but it's very subtly sort of just like things just sort of happen. And it's just like, well, that makes sense. Like, even if they don't say anything, you will be able to validate it. But I totally agree. I think their story, their connection, at opposite ends, war-torn hero, adolescent symbolism of the future, not knowing what she is, and discovering that along the way, and him discovering his own empathy and emotion in relation to his relationship with Alfie. It's a great recipe for a story, and they did so much in the first two acts that really had me hooked and really appreciating them. And to your point, their performances were so emotionally invested, and that's all you can ever ask for as an audience member is for these actors to commit to really believe. And that dynamic was it was so well done.
Well, and especially from Madeline, I think she's so endearing. You're not gonna.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a human on earth that couldn't fall for her charm.
She's the symbolism of innocence.
100%. And I think the other thing I would say too is, like, a lot of times, and I said this when we got out of the theater, I was like, there's so many kid actors that just take me right out of a film at her age. And she didn't. She fit so perfectly in this world. I believed every single moment with her on screen. And I think she gave such a competent and driven performance for someone her age. And I'm that's just awesome. That's awesome. I also just wanted to, before we keep going, I also did want to shout out a couple more folks. I think Allison Janney did a fantastic job, bringing the sort of the
Sigourney Weaver, fucking Ripley vibe,
vibe.
and she's that like again, there's archetypal genre tropes in this movie that are represented through characters, and Allison Janney's character is entirely that. She's so good. She's that, higher up military, kind of conflicted, but not really. She knows that she has a task.
Yep.
And I think that, again, she brings that almost that nostalgic, true sci-fi vibe in her performance.
And I love that she is able to really drive home in her performance, in her acting, the concept of a character who's driven, yes, by this sort of overall goal, but also something that's very personal to her as well.
Yeah,
it's a personal journey. I love it.
Yeah.
Ken Watanabe, I love him in everything he does. I can't get over how great this guy is.
Soft-spoken warrior, man.
He's phenomenal every single time. And then I did just want to give one more shout out to Amar Chadha Patel.
We both looked at each other.
We were so
when we
stoked.
Saw him.
We were so stoked.
Yeah.
I do think, like, we got a good amount of him. I would have liked a lot more.
I would have liked
just
more.
because I love him so much, and he's so great in rest in peace, Willow. I was stoked to see him pop up. But let's get to some things that we weren't so stoked about. And Justin, I know for you, I'm gonna have you jump in here because you've already brought it up. You've mentioning the first two acts, and you said that the third act of the film dropped the ball for you. If you want to elaborate.
Well, dude, it's impossible for me to ignore the narrative missteps in the third act. I think the characters, as I mentioned, so promisingly introduced in the first two acts, I feel like they're let down by a rushed and disjointed conclusion.
Yeah.
It's just plot convenience all of a sudden. It feels as though the storytelling took a back seat to the visual spectacle. And it just left me expecting more of a satisfying resolution for these character arcs and the plot threads that they were kind of sprinkling throughout. And, they were carefully woven throughout this film that tied them together. And I don't know, it delivers a very rushed ending that also felt very inevitable. I think even I knew the way this movie was going to end, but it's just how we got there was so rushed. And I feel like that last act really just throws some things out the window. And to me, this is the biggest detriment to this entire movie, because I've spent the last little bit here talking about how much really, really worked for me.
Yeah.
But this one thing really just diminishes this movie in a lot of ways, and it's so sad because it's unfortunate because of the performances that were given by our main cast, that they're not serviced with a really strong sort of arc. It just kind of made it seem like that's it.
Yeah, I've heard people, sort of some other people in the press who've seen the movie and have already been tweeting out their thoughts, and a lot of people saying like, "Oh, I'd love a sequel. I'd love to see more from this world." And I think, well, here's the thing:
prequel. Give me prequels.
Sure, but I also, that would actually be awesome.
The creator animatrix series. I'm just saying, like if it's the creator and it's like done in animation,
sure,
I would love to see those stories told, and it could help tell more about this world. Just saying.
Right, but I think like had this third act really, really hit the nail on the head, I think a lot more people would have been okay with a one and done. And I almost sort of feel like maybe people are wanting a sequel because, to your point, that third act did feel so rushed. I even wrote down in my notes, third act rush, because there's a moment that hits in the movie, and as soon as it does, you're going to know what we're talking about if you're listening to this now. And they, unfortunately, as I mentioned earlier, how much I love when they show, not tell. There was so much more telling than there was showing in the third act. So I completely agree.
So much.
I think a couple other disappointments for me. I think the dialogue definitely gets clunky a little bit. I want to shout out. I guess it's not a shout out; it's more like a call out.
You've shouted out a lot, so like if you want to just continue
Sturgill
with
Simpson as the character of Drew.
The expositional dump.
Okay, here's the thing. I wasn't even so upset by the expositional dump. It's a moment later it's in a latter part of the film where he's responsible for delivering big revelations to our main character, and he comes off so flat. Like he's literally reading the script on set while they're filming, and it took me out of what could have really been like such a huge moment for the character.
I would probably say, well, yes, there's other instances, again, I don't want to get into necessarily too much territory, where the film stumbles in dialogue department, and at times conversations between characters feel more forced and sort of lacking the nuances. And that is definitely a distraction, especially when compared to the film's otherwise very, very great production value.
Right.
But I'm wondering if these scenes were either rewritten in, because I don't know why they would have written, because to your point, in that moment is a big revelation, and it's like, why would you write that in that way?
Yeah,
is
and
what I was thinking, more or less than it was
the character's not even on screen at times when he's saying these lines. So was that ADR? Like it? Yeah.
Well, exactly, but it's just the way that, again, how this is given to our protagonist, how he is coming into the realization of this. I just wonder if it was just a misstep from the writing standpoint, and that's why we get this sort of stinted, forced performances. And that's what I was thinking about with many of the dialogue issues that were going on, is that they were probably more just filled in portions to kind of connect dots that just hadn't been connected originally. So I don't know if I could really attribute it to just performances as much as it is a writing misstep.
Okay. Yeah, maybe I'm being too harsh on Sturgill, but I will say the last thing that was disappointing for me, and I'm huge on the music in movies, and I just think there are some great, to me at least, as a casual fan, if you will, of sort of these blockbuster sci-fi movies. It's like there's some dope needle drops, but it felt like every single time, you know how like you're only allowed to use a certain amount of music for a TikTok? That's what it felt like. Like every single time,
yeah,
like there's like Radiohead.
Use it for
Radiohead starts up, and then it's like, and then I'm like, let's go, we're into it, and then it goes away after like a minute, and I'm just like, it just felt like musically, there was no moment that really carried the momentum the way it could have in a scene, and that's both from the score and the soundtrack. And I'm blown away. I love Hans Zimmer. Hans Zimmer is insane.
I was surprised to see his name
when it popped up
in the credit.
credits,
I was like, what? Hans Zimmer made the music video? Because it didn't have the sort of bombastic Hans Zimmer score.
There was no emphasis on the
No,
music for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Hans Zimmer's music also signature is signature to him.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's just there's a quality to it that feels inherently Hans Zimmer. The score in this movie felt very downplayed while the visuals were definitely top tier.
For sure. And maybe there's something to be said about sort of the distraction of it's like how great this movie looked that maybe we weren't listening as much. But I will say the score that plays over the credits, listening to it, and since listening to it a couple pieces on YouTube, it's gorgeous. But I just, at least during my first watch, I just never got the sense that it was integrated too well into the film. So maybe
that's a fair point, though, too.
Yeah.
Just good call out. It could have been that we were so enamored by the visuals that we just blocked our ears off of everything.
It's possible.
From a music
Yeah,
standpoint.
except we still heard that horrible dialogue at times from Sturgill Simpson. All right, let's get to our overall thoughts and final score for this movie, which we're going to be rating on a scale of, and I know this is kind of scary, 1 to 5 possible futures. And Justin, I'll get you to kick us off.
Yeah, like I was saying before, I think the creator is a testament to the power of visual storytelling. It's a love letter to the films that have come before it, and as you know, Gareth Edwards has openly talked about how he's blended a war film with sci-fi film elements to tell a story that is both poignant and haunting as AI becomes our future. I think its stunning aesthetics create an immersive and unforgettable cinematic experience that will have audiences remembering this long after the credits roll. But I like I was saying, I think the film struggles with character development and a third act that disappointingly falls short of a promising buildup in the first 2 acts. It undeniably compensates with its breathtaking aesthetics.
You have to watch this movie.
Exactly. You have to watch this movie. The sheer spectacle of its visual effects, the meticulous attention to production design, the awe-inspiring cinematography all combine to create a cinematic experience that ranks among the year's most unforgettable films. For sure. 100%. However, this film to me is a reminder that even the most dazzling visuals can't fully compensate for a narrative that leaves its characters and story feeling underdeveloped in its final act. So I'm going to give this movie a 3.5 out of 5 possible futures.
Ooh, yeah. I'm definitely a little higher on it. I think thinking like back to when we first saw this trailer, and I was like, "Oh, it's so Rogue One," and that got me so stoked and so happy. And I remember some of the feelings that I had as I was watching Rogue One of sort of like, yeah, good guys and bad guys, and then sort of watching it again and going like kind of not great guys and bad guys, and then kind of watching it again and going, oh my gosh, war is just awful. And I think that is emphasized even more in this sci-fi movie from Gareth Edwards. I think it's so much more grounded, and it's so harsh, and it's such a topical subject, while at the same time that he infuses story and visuals borrowed from other sci-fi stories, but still it's so wholly original that it just had me smiling, and every time a new variation of a character would pop up that we haven't seen before, I was just like, that's so freaking cool. The world building, the character design, the way that we talked about spirituality was involved, and the horrors of war were depicted as like just not something I expected out of a sci-fi blockbuster. And yeah, the cinematography, the way it was shot, my eyes were glued to the screen. John David Washington, Madeline Univoyles just captured me enough that I was really invested in them throughout the movie. I wanted more from the music overall, and like you're saying, yeah, that third act is super rushed. It's so hard to ignore that aspect. And yeah, would this be a 5 out of 5 for both of us had that not have happened? Probably. But there, at the same time, I was so enamored by just how stunning and terrifying this dystopian world that he created was, that I wasn't too upset by the end of the movie. I think this is a solid sci-fi movie that fits within, like, really, really perfectly within his repertoire. And I think a lot of people are really going to enjoy the movie as we, in our world, navigate the scary potential reality within its plot. So I'm going to give the creator a very solid 4 out of 5 possible futures. But that is it for our review of The Creator. We hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, make sure to subscribe to us wherever you like to listen to podcasts, if you haven't already. And if you want to write into the show with your thoughts on this movie or any of the movies that we cover, well, let me just reprogram Justin so he can let you know how to reach us.
Well, they can reach us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. Or they can reach out to us on the app formerly known as Twitter at GeekcentricYT, or on Instagram at wearegeekcentric, and on Threads and TikTok at wearegeekcentric.
I know it's not something to take lightly, but I will just in jest and in humor, I will say the one job that I does hope sooner than later gets taken by a robot is the owner of Twitter. I think, please, just give it back to us. Give us Twitter again. I think anyone, even a robot, would do better than that guy. But if you want to tell us your thoughts of this movie, and maybe you want to say it is a 3.5 or it is a 4, or maybe it's a 5 for you, we'd love to chat about it once you've seen it. So be sure to join our Discord using the link in our description, and let us know your thoughts as we kind of continue watching all these different movies. And of course we have our watch club for Star Wars Ahsoka, and we are just through the moon on that series. So we're breaking it down every single week in our watch club, and you can join us in the Discord to let us know your theories and your thoughts on the latest episodes. Keep in mind, we also have a ton of great episodes covering the latest in movies, TV shows, and games, including our recent spoiler-free reviews for Expendables 4, I Am Groot Season 2, Star Wars Ahsoka Episodes 1 and 2, Only Murders in the Building Season 3, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. We also have a ton of interviews out now, like our various interviews with folks from Star Wars, Marvel, Disney, and so many more. So you can catch those interviews here on your podcast service of choice, or over on YouTube at youtube.com/geekcentric. Make sure to subscribe, click the likes, do all the things so you can keep up with the great stuff that we got coming at you. Justin, thank you so much for joining me for this sci-fi blockbuster review. And as we say, love ya.
Peace.